Hi, this is Paula Gloria, and this show is called Farther Down the Rabbit Hole because we like to go into topics more deeply. Today, I'm very honored to have with me two people that are very important to my understanding of how reality is put together here in New York City and thus in the world at large. The show is going to be about hypocrisy, social hypocrisy, and at the same time it's going to be how do we gain the power and the inspiration to motivate us to make the changes that clearly need to be made. So before I introduce my guests, I would just like to go over a paper that was handed to me by one of the guests, which will be Josh Volinski, from Frank Morales. And he is the Reverend at St. Mark's Church, and he is particularly noted throughout the world for his work on 9/11 truth. He's talking about the Pope in America, and the sections are The Pope Takes Manhattan, Opus Dei Decoded. He goes on and he talks about, this is interesting to me, the Vatican meets Pentagon Inc., which is something to think about, you know, when you have religion and, you know, financials all blended in. Holy Counterinsurgency. He talks about the coup in Venezuela, the Bushes and the Pope. And so, essentially, the question is, when does religion inspire us to live a better life, and when does religion, in trying to live a better life, kind of fill us with shame and sort of trepidation about leaning towards what gives us inspiration and going away towards what we are told is bad for us, but in truth might be something that could encourage us. So this area of feminine allure, feminine inspiration is something that is depicted in art. We can see the display of the human body and the understanding of the difference between men and women. We see it in museums, in sculptures, and in paintings. But we also are aware of something called pornography, and that's something that is considered to be where we need religion to protect us. So, you know, that's all an old argument, but what I want to try to do today with my guests, which will be Josh Volinski and Ugly George, is see if we can go into this topic more honestly and take advantage of their real experiences. I'm going to be having a roll-in from a woman who's known as a sex worker. Her name is Nina Hartley. So we can either have a little discussion first, or we can go right into the roll-in. What would you like to do, gentlemen? And welcome.
Well, I'd like to talk about pedophilia.
Oh, you would?
No, absolutely. Okay.
Here we go. My favorite topic.
All right.
Unfortunately, I wish it wasn't my favorite topic.
Okay. Well, you see, when people want to get rid of people like Ugly George or freedom of speech, they say, you know, I'm a First Amendment liberal. Yes, sir, I would never take away anything from the First Amendment because I'm a great liberal. However, we must protect the children. They love to bring up children. Boy, do they love to bring up children, okay? So you see, since we have to protect our nation's children, and this is a given that we must protect them, therefore, we have to investigate pornography, and we have to get into the pornographers, and we have to ban the pornographers without any discussion from them because it's pedophilia. Because after all, the children can't put up with this. So this is their little back-ass way.
With either them, the pornographers, or their audience? Because a lot of people are audience of pornography and they don't admit it. Now, I'm not wanting to make people feel ashamed of something. I'm just saying, let's put it out on the table.
I'm just giving you the answer that this is the sensationalism that they love to use, okay? That we're for freedom of speech, we're for people doing what they want, we're for people looking at what they want to look for in the privacy of their own home. However, it's the children. And since we must protect the children, therefore we need 9,000 laws. I was on a panel with Sally Jesse Raphael where they said, you see, since my child has called the 900 lines 1,200 times, and we get the bill, that's why we have to ban 900 lines, because children may call on them. And of course, I asked the moron, who was a woman, How come you let your son call all this time and you kept paying his bills? Why should everyone else suffer because you can't control your old dim-witted son? Okay? She got very mad at that. And by the way, Sally got mad at that too. All right? So...
Now, who's Sally again?
Sally Jesse Raphael. I was on her show. She had a show on for 10 years. Okay? Now...
Just a second. What do you think about this, Josh? Do the children need to be protected?
First of all, I'd like to introduce myself. I'm an admirer of Ugly George and Nina Hartley. I'm a fan of pornography and so on, and anything I'm a fan of, I really attach myself like a magnet, just like I've attached myself like a magnet to M&N, which is just a wonderful concept. But here is the thing. Human beings, healthy human beings, have something known as a sex drive. I think we should decriminalize everything except pedophilia. Of course, that's unacceptable. But they use that, the critics of pornography use that as a charade. Now, it would be very, very...
No, excuse me, Josh. You say they use it as a charade, saying that pornography leads to pedophilia.
Well,
is that what the charade is? I want to be clear, because I don't believe that punishment ever works, so I don't think that criminalizing is really going to solve the problem. I think to really understand these energies, we need to approach it in a way that doesn't involve punishment. Otherwise, you're just going to suppress and make it worse. Now, I think Ugly George was getting to a different angle. You were saying because you can't have the healthy expression and the joyful celebration of natural differences matured, that it gets twisted, or what are you saying?
All right, if you listen, people have said, we're in New York. We're full of First Amendment liberals because we're here in New York, and there's no such thing as a backward reactionary conservative here in New York. We're all liberals. So what about the First Amendment? Yes, except children. Children might be harmed by pornography. So there's the opening wedge of all the laws we have to make against public access is to protect children, okay? And I listen patiently, and they say, so, Ugly George, so you're a... pedophilia, you're a pedophile, huh? And no, I'm not. So, you're a pedophile, you admit it. No, I'm not. Oh, so you just said you were a pedophile. See, they ignore whatever I say. They have their own argument, okay? So I say, do you think pedophilia is bad? Do you think it's bad to initiate innocent children into sex? Oh, yes, I do. Well, you know what? It's bad to initiate children into sex? Okay, wise asses. Guess who has admitted openly about children being initiated into sex? It isn't Ugly George. All right, you got a close-up on this? Priest sex victims bear pain to pontiff. Okay, got this? Who's the biggest pedophiliac in the world? The Catholic Church. All right? As you know, regarding the scum that wrote into you and said, oh, Ugly George, you're talking about the Catholic Church. Well, you know, there was one priest who took care of some boys, and therefore all those arguments don't mean anything. Do you know the Catholic Church has now set aside hundreds of millions of dollars, not only in the Boston Archdiocese, but in the New York Archdiocese, because of the sex suits from former choir boys who are now suing the church very successfully for sex abuse over many, many decades. I don't make this up. I report it. You will not shoot the messenger, okay? So hundreds of millions of dollars are now being paid by Catholic parishioners to settle sex suits that have gone on for 10 years, 20 years, 30 years.
Okay, so if they had your show, if they let your energies, your creative energies as an artist go, do you think you could have a healthier society?
I'm trying to give you the answer, okay? There are hundreds of millions of dollars. There are hundreds of men now who were abused as boys by Catholic priests, okay? This is the biggest pedophilia organization in history. It's taken place for 150 years, ever since the damn Catholics got big in the United States. It's been covered up for a century and a half. What happened to our liberal press, our garbage liberal press? Well, the garbage liberal press has an answer, and it still has an answer. You know who's to blame? Well, never mind the thousands of boys that were abused. Never mind the thousands of Catholic priests. You know who the evil is? The polygamists. That's right, students. Once again, they found a little sect of Protestants who are evil. Okay? And it's all these goddamn Protestants in their little sect somewhere. Why, it's Waco, Texas, all over again, isn't it? Right? And they must be abusing this. And let's talk about girls. Why, do you know it says here there are some 13-year-old girls that may have been abused? Oh, my goodness. What about 6-year-old choir boys being abused by Catholic priests, right? So you notice it's all very sexist as well. Every time the garbage talk about child pornography, it's always girls, never boys. But you know what? 10 times the number of boys have been abused as girls, because we have 10 times the number of Catholic priests. Say the word little girl to a Catholic priest, and he'll throw up. Why would anybody be interested in a little girl? Oh, those boys. Yes, come in, little Patrick. Come in, little Kevin. You want to be altar boys, don't you? So there are thousands of Kevins and Patricks and Vladislavs
George,
and others.
Were you abused as a child?
I was abused by every Catholic priest in history, and I told them I dig chicks, okay? What can I tell you? And they said, what's wrong with you? What are you, a pervert? You're not a homosexual like us? Okay? So the Catholic priesthood is all homosexuals.
I don't know if I believe your answer, but you know, you have a lot of energy into this, and
Well,
I
you know,
I like your art. I admire what you've done to keep cable going, or to get it off the ground. There's no question that you have an audience. Even to this day, it's true. You're not tooting your horn too much. I've tested it. I say, do you know Ugly George? Everybody does.
Well,
I was in California, so I don't know you. I didn't grow up here.
Well, you know what? You know who else was a big pedophiliac, but the liberal garbage press didn't mention exactly what he was put in for? Remember the who? Remember Pete Townsend? Pete Townsend was caught and convicted of pedophilia on the internet. However, they never said the word boys. Townsend is not in the least interested in girls. It was only little boys that he was downloading.
So what's your solution?
Well, we have to get rid of people who like little boys, men who like little boys.
Get rid of them?
Yes, very simple. Disband the Catholic Church. Take away its tax exemption, okay? Take away its tax exemption because there's a bunch of pedophiliacs. It's thousands and thousands of Catholic priests who are using it as a recruiting society for little boys.
So you're saying it's kind of the pent-up struggle and, you know, trying to do practices that are impossible, to be celibate, that it sort of represses and twists the energy? You mean Jews aren't pedophiles?
It's not institutionalized. The Catholic Church is an institution that saves billions and billions a year in taxes because it says we're for God, Jesus, and the Virgin Mary.
I can understand that. What do you think, Josh?
Okay.
Do you think pedophilia exists only in the Catholic Church?
This is really an energizing conversation.
Right.
And I'll tell you, my philosophy is very, very different. As you know, one of my vocations is selling books. And I don't avoid books with sexual topics. I sometimes even have books that are pretty into pornography. Now, when I sell these books, all sorts of customers approach me in front of where I sell them, and I've had women come over with young children. Most of them, unfortunately, are from France or Italy, and the children look through these books. I had like a 5-year-old kid looking at these books, and I looked at the mother, and she smiled. She said, she nodded her head. She said, that's fine, leave her alone, let her look at whatever she does. The kid looked at it like every normal child, and soon lost interest in something else and went on her way. And I've had another parent, a mother, start kicking my books and saying, you have a hell of a nerve to sell this on a family street. Of course, the first thing I asked her is, what is a family street? You know, another old man passed by, took a look at that book and said, you should be arrested and jailed. I said, well, wait a minute, what about the First Amendment and so on? Maybe you should be jailed.
Didn't we just answer that? That's their opening wedge, okay? Yeah. They're not for censorship. They're not communists. They just want to protect children. Okay? Now, Josh, isn't it true that you were a Catholic altar boy and you were abused by Archbishop Cook or Archbishop this one or Archbishop that one when you were a Catholic altar boy?
Yes.
And you were 6 years old?
I remember that from my reincarnation.
That's right. All right. You see, Josh, can you name those priests who abused you when you were a young Catholic altar boy, when you were 6 years old?
Yeah, well, I think
the cardinals and the priests and the monsignors?
Well, one was Father Adam.
Uh-oh.
He claimed he was related to the first man.
Okay,
so
all
he
right.
knew what he was doing.
All right.
I know what men do.
Okay. And the question we have to ask is, we're here in liberal New York with the media. In the 1920s, 30s, 40s, 50s, all this abuse of young Catholic boys was going on. Where was the media? Where was the New York Times? Where was the Daily News? Where was WCBS TV? Where was the I-Team? They never mentioned this.
Okay, so since the media is not doing the job has to be done in the families with good parents. Now, I'm understanding, Josh, you're saying that a European parent had a healthier attitude, let the kid look at the book, and the kid just sort of took its course of curiosity and then went on to other things, which means that if somebody got this child to do things that maybe the parents wouldn't be happy about, such a child would report it back to his parents because there's strong connections to the parents. Do you think that? And does religion upset that, or does religion help that? To have strong connections with the parents.
Oh, yes.
I mean, I want to talk about solutions.
Well, take away the exemption of the Catholic Church. There's the first solution, okay?
But what about Judaism? Is there no pedophilia in Judaism? Josh, you can't answer this.
Okay.
In this incarnation, Josh can. Maybe in another.
All right.
Yes, of course, of course.
And you think the solution lies where? Endless psychoanalysis?
It's psychological. In fact, if you've been reading the news stories where they're violating these people's privacy by going on the internet, many of these people are Jewish, of Jewish background in the newspaper.
Of course, you never know if they're setting people up.
So it's
Paula, the problem is that the priests are
here is
celibate.
another
listen,
thing.
They're celibate, and they suppress the sexual energy. That's what I just want to add.
Excellent point from Alan Steinfeld, who's supporting us in the control room, along with Robin Courier, and I'm so happy to have everyone here with us.
And that's why the church has set aside hundreds of millions, because the priests are celibate, except they're losing every case now.
Right.
Every boy who comes out and who's now a man can prove that he was molested by a Catholic priest who was celibate, right?
Now, this is a perfect time for the roll-in. Are we ready for that with Nina Hartley?
Yes.
And then we'll pick this up, because I'm excited that between us, our collective intelligence and experience can come up with some solutions to a very, very difficult
Is there any intelligence in this room?
Have they accepted your lifestyle?
They don't really like it very much. I mean, I graduated magna cum laude from nursing school. My mother, would really like for me to be a nurse. And she's not surprised I'm good at what I do, because, of course, I'd be good at anything I do because I'm smart. But the nature of my work is troubling to them.
Still?
Yeah, they're the wrong generation to understand it. For them, again, we're so fearful for our daughters to have a full-blown sexuality that when one of them tries to do it, it just takes us aback. The women who are very anti-pornography, from a non-Christian standpoint, are women who actually are still obsessed with sex, but they're obsessed with the negativity of it, and they don't do anything to really help. And I said they don't do anything. They don't seem to do anything to really help women's lives. If they really wanted to help our poor little sex worker lives, they'd come to us and go, "How can we help you?" And take our advice and actually listen to us, rather than treat us like imbecilic children or brainwashed Stepford wives. They treat us completely with disrespect, and we're supposed to listen to them. And you know, we're supposed to go, oh, thank you for wanting to save us. Oh, great, you know, prudish hung up lady.
Come up on me now. The reason that I wanted to have that role in is because I really defer to the experience of you gentlemen here. But I also, when I listen carefully to what she's saying, you know, using Marshall Rosenberg's nonviolent communication techniques, she also has some unmet needs. And she's saying if they really wanted to help us, the people who are criticizing us, they would come to us and ask, what can we do? And I sense that there does need to be a connection in society so that we understand what the pressures are like, because I don't think it's all about just dumping the Catholic Church and we're not hypocrites anymore, but that there's some very deep issues here. And it's not just that women are prudish and uptight when they say this is a questionable career. Would you really want your daughters going in the career as we see it today? Well, and has religion failed not only the children, but also the women who have to move forward?
Okay. Nina Hartley and I met in 1984 at a porn convention. She was known for what Josh calls her tuchus, okay? Josh talks like that, all right? She was very well-rounded from the back. And there were many men and boys and teenagers at this porn convention dying to do something with Nina or to see her from the back. All right? And you know who was not at this porn convention? Sexless women. So it's the sexless women who complain constantly. You shouldn't be doing that. You shouldn't be doing this. What they really meant was, why is my husband or boyfriend off at this sex convention paying to see Nina Hartley when he's supposed to be here with me? Okay? That's their real angle. That's what they're really mad at. Okay?
Is there a problem with that?
There's a problem with ugly women. There's a problem with sexless women, because sexless women are always ready to point a finger at sexy women and say, it's your fault for being sexy, Nina. It's your fault for having a great tuchus that men want to get into. All right? It's your fault. You shouldn't be like that.
Do you think that this sexy woman with the nice bottom could help the women who are suffering in their marriages, trying to keep their kids in school?
No, they don't want to be. They don't want to be helped. They think they know it all. And you just said it. Food. You know what sexless women are into? Food. Okay?
But you have to take care of the children. Josh, do you understand what I'm saying? That at the end of one's life, and you look back over your life and you say, what have you done? Are people taking care of each other? You know,
no,
did you hear that she
They're
needed...
not, because I want to go in another direction.
Okay.
People are in denial. A healthy human being has sex drive. They have sex drive and sexual energy. This is the first basic thing we have to talk about. Now, I'm a little disenchanted that we just went into pedophilia, because I remember seeing a film about pedophilia many years ago, which was a dramatic film that won many awards. I don't remember what the film was, but it took place in a prison. And in the prison, the prisoners had a workshop with a psychiatrist, and the person who was up the river for messing with children said that this child was flirting with me. So all the prisoners in this workshop started booing him. And the psychiatrist said, no, wait a minute, stop. He's telling the truth. Little girls do flirt. That's true. Or can be flirtatious. This is true. This is true. And this was a...
The little boys flirt? No.
No,
let him finish his thought.
But anyway, so there's a lot of things. We're talking about a very, very complex issue. But what I wanted to really discuss is our sexual energy and our sexual drive. Once we come to terms with that, Paula Gloria is absolutely right. Nobody should be sent to jail. Even somebody in pedophilia. They should be worked in like they did in this film. I just can't remember the name. In a workshop. Because after all, you know, as adults, you have to control your emotions.
Yes, but you see, this area this area of control, Josh, it's not our education, our philosophy, our science has failed us, and we don't understand these energies, and that's why the only way we can deal with it is with fear, repression, shame, judgment, and that's what I'm saying. Can you, particularly you, George, because you've dealt with all this all your life, are these women able to be the leaders so that we can untwist very twisted energies and heal the unhealable?
Well, let me show you who the leaders are, okay?
That's Candy.
All right, now,
Samples.
in roughly 1984, here's Ugly George at the same show with Nina Hartley, okay? And Candy Samples has got all the guys, every single guy is in her booth trying to get their hands on her boobs. They're not interested in food. They're not at home with the ugly, sexless women. They're with Candy Samples in the booth and paying for it, trying to get their hands on her, okay? And here's another picture of Candy. Now, Candy has no problem whatsoever attracting men.
Center camera.
Center camera.
Okay, Candy has no problem whatsoever attracting men, as you can tell. All right, and by the way, you know who took this picture? The famous Russ Meyer. All right? Russ took this picture of me and Candy where she thrust her boobs into my face and said, George, how'd you like to kiss these, all right? And Nina thrust something else into my face and said, how'd you like to kiss this? I was shocked at this convention, but I had a good time, okay? And there are hundreds of guys paying very good money to get into this convention when they're supposed to be at home with their sexless girlfriends, their sexless wives, their sexless women, as Paula says, but they're not at home with them. They're at this porn convention.
But my thing is, how can you get the energy? I see both you guys light up. You know, there's no question about it. It makes you happy to think about even these experiences
Boobs
you had.
make men light up. Boobs.
Okay, but here's my question.
I know
but Josh,
Candy Samples. I know her well. And she was an office worker, and she said every time she was at the filing cabinet, men looked at one thing. So one day, a friend of hers said, you should capitalize on them. That's where the money is, Mary.
Okay, now, what I'm wanting
Funny you know her name is Mary. That is her name.
But, okay, there's no question about this. I'm not denying that. But what I am saying, is there a way that you can take this experience of happiness and joy and inspiration and move it into very difficult areas in your society, not just back at home with your wife screaming and the kids, but have the courage when you're back at the job to stand up and say no when something wrong is happening, to watch, you know, we know politically that we have experts that are not coming forth on 9/11, for example. Can we make men more courageous? Are these women making men more courageous, or are they just slinking home and pretending that they don't do this, in which case that's hypocritical too?
Paula, how can you mention our beloved Democratic Governor Eliot Spitzer? How could you mention him? Now, there was Eliot, who had a loving wife at home, and boy, was she a good cook, and she had food and fashion. And there was Eliot sneaking off, all right, with Josh's friend here, okay, and paying $5,000 an hour for the privilege of your tax money. $5,000 an hour from client number 9 to go with this brainless bimbo who, as has been said, was only a couple of years older than his daughter.
The brainless bimbo, by the way, said that it's more complicated than you think. So she never felt that she could tell her story to the media. And I'm saying, can we, who are always saying we're wanting to listen more deeply and we want a more rewarding society that's responding to our needs, can we listen more deeply? That's why I had the Nina Hartley roll in. So Josh, you've had a long life, so you followed many of these women. Are they happy at the end of their life?
Well, here is the thing. I was with a woman like Mrs. Spitzer, and she was very much aware that her husband enjoyed lap dancing and prostitution.
She was aware.
And she asked me, where did I meet her husband? And I wasn't going to tell him where the lap dancing was, but she told me. And so I said, well, how do you feel about it? She said, my husband is a good provider, a good husband, a good lover, a good father, a good grandfather. So I regard his rendezvous like a game of tennis. But once he finishes the game of tennis, he comes home to me and he loves me, and I'm totally satisfied with that. That's
happy
another
ending.
Perspective.
Alan in the
Happy
control room.
ending,
Is it
happy
just another
ending.
game of tennis?
Okay, wait a
Alan
minute.
in the control
Wait a
room?
minute.
No, but I was going to show Sandy Kane, maybe.
Okay.
Okay, now.
Okay, after Ugly George says something, we're
Okay,
going to roll
now
in Sandy Kane.
Robin is jealous because Robin tried to be an altar girl in the Catholic Church, and the Catholic Church said,
Robin.
girls, we don't want girls here. Cute little blonde girls, we don't want cute little blonde girls. Bring your brother in, all right? So Robin was turned away, all right? They're very sexist in the Catholic Church.
Okay, Alan, do you want to do the roll-in of Sandy Kane?
Okay, maybe Robin will say something while I set that up.
Okay. Robin, do you have any thoughts about that? I'm looking for solutions to problems, and I'm always trying to be alert to where I find power that could address solutions, because you need power.
Is it religion or is it the individual? I see you pointing the finger at various religious places and I'm wondering, isn't it the individual that may have the problem?
Well, that's why I was saying about family values. Josh was saying this European family just allowed their child to look through. Do you mean that, Robin? That's individual? I can't hear Robin.
As opposed to condemning any kind of religious faction or whatever, it's the individual priests who are the ones that are perpetrating the crime, and it is a crime.
For
but what Alan was pointing out, Robin, was that if you're having to follow a protocol of celibacy, then that is going to suppress and some say pervert the energies. On the other hand, to have the energies run rampant, I think a lot of men, and even Sandy Kane would say this, a lot of the strippers do not respect the men that frequent their establishments.
They respect their money.
But does it also have something to do with power?
Okay.
Well,
let's show the Sandy Kane because it's up and running.
Okay. Okay. We're going to do Sandy Kane now.
Strip club. As far as having a normal relationships with men, that I am not a good person to ask.
So you mean, because you work with strip clubs, you do not have a normal?
No, I am so, I'm not going to say the F word. I just really don't feel like it, you know? I mean, I've said it enough in strip clubs. Every other word is F in the strip club. I fired my therapist. I hope you don't mind.
That's okay.
She was too messed up, but no.
What happened? What happened?
What had to be a tough life?
You didn't have.
Well, I think it was the music, and it was easy. Like
what got messed up? Where did you get messed up? I mean, I just want to.
Where did you get messed up? A good question. I think I was an entertainer, and as I said to my sister, it is a stage, and I couldn't get the stage before I was Streisand God, so I took the only stage that was available to me, and and that's how I became a comic, because I would start, a guy would say, hey, honey, Stevie Wonder's lucky he can't see, when he looked at my face, and I'd say, hey, you want to bust in the mouth. And then I started getting laughs from these people. So I went to the comedy club and did the same joke. And the joke, funny is funny. I mean, I was just doing a dick stick up there. So that's why they say I'm very raunchy. But to me, I'm funny. I mean, I am. I come from strip clubs. They're very raunchy strip clubs.
Did you do comedy while you were stripping?
I was doing comedy while I was stripping.
Okay, here we are back again. I wanted to have that roll-in of Sandy Kane because that's a long interview that Alan Steinfeld had done. And I remember showing that at an ashram in India where we were studying very seriously Tantra. And there was an Austrian friend of mine who was so moved at that interview that she was in tears. Because first of all, a lot of women in mainstream society don't even know what goes on in this world. And the compassion that they have, woman to woman, makes the hearts tender and to wonder. And Sandy Kane is a good person.
Did Sandy tell you that she tried to be a nun and they rejected her. They said, no Jews allowed. Did Sandy ever tell you that? She said, but I desperately want to be a nun, and I want to empower mankind.
No,
I said, get the hell out of here.
No, I think humor's really good, George, for sure.
Okay.
For sure, but I also sense that
you know what they
we
said?
have at our fingertips some solutions if we look at them.
And you know what the solution
courage.
was? You know what they said to Sandy? Go service Josh Volinski, okay? That's what they said.
Well, my friend,
well, what do you mean by that? Just a second. What do you mean by that?
Okay, they said, go empower Josh,
my
okay?
Friend
Josh, would you be empowered by that if Sandy Kane came? Would you be empowered by Sandy Kane coming and servicing you? Or would you want a deeper connection?
I would want a deeper connection. I've spoken to Sandy here, and she has a one-track mind. And to me, she's also in denial on many levels, and I don't appreciate that. I appreciate somebody much more like Diane Hansen, who played herself in Crumb, that documentary Crumb.
Okay, so you're saying she's another sex worker who had a more compassionate, developed heart?
Sandy Kane is, well, I don't know. She considers herself a comedian, but I think Sandy Kane, I find her when I talk to her here, that she hasn't come to terms with the reality, with the #1 reality herself.
Okay, well, Alan Seinfeld in the interview got her to kind of drop down, and it was a very moving interview. I don't know if you saw it.
But you know what Paul is afraid to mention?
What?
Paul is afraid to mention that these women who service men and get into the sex industry have back rooms, and these back rooms have couches in them, and they bring in empty pocketbooks. And when they leave, after these men come, the pocketbooks are full of money. Now, how did that happen, Paula? What do these women really do for a living?
Well, no, okay, I'm glad you brought up the money issue.
Thank you.
Because pedophilia per se, it's not about sex with a younger person. It's about how the sex is conducted, and it's about the industry of slavery. Because if a child is put in this position for money, that's the problem I have. If, on the other hand, I have a friend, my girlfriend, she was 14. Listen, she was 14 when she had her first sex, and she was fine about it. She said that was great, it was perfect, she was ready. But she had a good man, you know, it was an initiation. This isn't an exchange of money. Now, I think anywhere along your life, it shouldn't be about...
You're leaving out the biggest argument, okay? And it's a true story. How about a 9-year-old girl having sex for money? And how about her story making $66 million? Now, you don't know what that is, do you?
Yes, I think I do. What's the
okay.
name?
It's called Pretty Baby, okay? And it's a true story, all right?
And what was the name of the lady, the person, or the girl?
Brooke Shields.
Brooke Shields. Oh, that's
well,
different.
not exactly. Brooke Shields said, I'm not a prostitute, I just play one in the movies. And she was 9 years old. But who she was playing was Violet. And Violet was a 9-year-old prostitute in New Orleans in World War I. And 9 years old, a lot of money was made off Violet because men of means came to see this 9-year-old girl, and a lot of money changed hands. Not with her, but with... I'm the messenger.
You know what the issues are.
Okay, I'm reporting the story. I'm not making
the messenger.
Right, okay.
I'm speaking for Pope Benedict.
Right.
Okay, let's start with Violet. Go ahead.
Okay, anyway, Paula, it's a true story about sex with money for children, okay? There was a real person named Violet who was the daughter of a prostitute in a New Orleans brothel during World War I. She was 9 years old. And men came to see her, men of means, and a lot of money changed hands on account of Violet's sexual activities. Remember, she's 9 years old, okay? Many years later, the famous French filmmaker discovered Violet. She was now an old woman, and the story, and he called it Pretty Baby. And he said, wait a minute, we can't have Paula Gloria play Violet because Paula won't pass for a 9-year-old. So we got to have a 9-year-old, and they got Brooke Shields. And Brooke Shields was on many shows, including Donahue, saying, I'm not a prostitute, I just play one in the movies. And the film made $66 million, which was a lot of money in those days, okay?
But she didn't have to do the dastardly deed. I mean, I can't even fathom a little child. What happens? I hate to even ask.
I just told you the men paid her for something, and it wasn't
I don't even want to think
sing.
about that something.
Okay.
A little child's tender body and things.
Violet
I talked about
was
a 14-year-old.
was 9 years old, wasn't even developed yet, okay? But men paid her a lot of money, and she wasn't the only case. She even said that herself. So many years later, the French filmmaker discovered her as an old woman, got the story out of her, and did the movie called Pretty Baby, which is a true story. I don't make it up, I'm just a messenger.
No, I'm sure you're not making it up.
And during World War I, a lot of prominent people came to this certain house in New Orleans, in that famous section of New Orleans known as Storyville, which is where all the houses of prostitution were during World War I, and had a good time with this 9-year-old girl. A lot of money changed hands. She saw some of it. Her mother saw some, and the proprietor saw some. And according to Josh Volinski, the mayor of New Orleans saw some. Okay? So many years later, they did the movie called Pretty Baby, Brooke Shields' first starring role, wearing nothing. Okay? She was nude in it, 9 years old. Everybody said they were properly shocked, except how did the movie make so much money? Because people went to see it, okay? So they were very interested in this 9-year-old girl.
You mean they got a naked 9-year-old girl because she was prepubescent? Is that how they got through the censors?
Well, how are you going to get a 9-year-old girl? I mean, a 9-year-old girl is a 9-year-old girl. You're not going to get an old lady of,
no, I understand.
Of 14. You can't get a 14-year-old girl.
No, I understand, but I'm saying, how did the movie get made that way?
It got made because I saw the nudes of Brooke when she was 9, all right? And apparently
do you understand what I'm saying? They wouldn't show a nude of a 14-year-old, but they would of a 9-year-old?
The movie was made. It made $66 million. People went to see it. Brooke was nude in it.
Get the movie, Paula. Get the movie and look at it.
I guess I just don't understand censorship, that's all. I'm just thinking that if the energies were more balanced, all of this wouldn't be so odd and strange and cause such pain to people on all sides.
Well, Violet wasn't pained. She was a real prostitute.
No, at the end of her life, what was she like? How did she reflect back on her life? Was she able to balance it? That's a lot of energy.
She was happy to get the money at the end of her life for her life story in the film.
Well, Alan, I remember Sandy Kane was complaining. She said it was a difficult life.
Well, she's chosen to do it, though.
She didn't seem happy with her choice.
Well, there's not a lot of people who are, maybe. It's not about prostitution.
Exactly. They're not happy with any choice, so we have a society of unhappy people.
See, Sandy is just annoyed.
I feel grief from Josh in a nice way. What do you think, Josh?
I want to hear what George says about Sandy, though.
Well, Sandy is annoyed that she didn't get Governor Spitzer for $5,000 an hour.
I know you're making a joke, but come on, Josh.
No, we have to come to terms, as I say, with the real world and with our real sexual desires and energy. Look, $66 million, and George has what? He claims he has over 1 million hits on Wahoo and 1.5 million links.
Yes, 40 million on Yahoo.
And who's looking at it? I mean, this is more links and more hits than Oprah has. So our society should make up its mind. It should stop being hypocritical and come to terms with its sexual desires and energies. Actually, if I said in front of this camera that it should be a human right for anyone to live out their sexual desires, whether it's whatever they want to do, that should be the way, you know, if it's consensual among two human beings. And we can't even figure out what a child is. I know I was bar mitzvahed at 13, but if somebody would have had a sex with me when I was 14, I guess they would go to jail. So society has to come to terms with it.
How about when you were 6?
With 6?
Yeah.
Well, I think there is quite a bit of rationalization in it, but can you really intellectualize and explain that, George?
Who would like to have sex with 6-year-old boys like Joshua?
Yeah, go ahead.
Who would like to do that? Okay. I don't make this up, okay? The Catholic Church is facing $1 billion worth of lawsuits from 6-year-old boys who priests, Catholic priests, inflicted themselves on and possibly warped their lives. That's why the pontiff is addressing this issue.
Robin, I need a little more female energy here. You're back to the individual. I mean, where is the solution going to come? The society's out of control. There's no question. People are are either overindulging, you know, they abuse their power, they can pick up and find young children from desperate people who have to sell the children, even if they wish they didn't have the child do these acts. How do we reclaim our power and everybody's happier?
You're talking about a century and a half of abuse of young boys, institutionalized by generation after generation of Catholic priests, tax exempt, and getting a lot of money from the government for running tax-exempt schools. And many of these tax-exempt schools in the back room were pedophiliac rooms for little boys. And they were getting paid by the taxpayers because they said, we're running Catholic schools. It has just been published that the population of New York City is about 8 million. There are 2,900,000 practicing Catholics in New York. So you're talking almost half the population of New York is Catholic.
Did you look upon yourself as a healer, your work as healing work when you did the Ugly George show? Because to me, you gave encouragement to poor guys who felt they couldn't score with chicks. You brought them back to the Polish penthouse, which would be your basement, you know, not lavish apartment.
Not lavish.
And I think that was very healing. That sent the message to people. It kind of gave these guys hope, these young guys. I talked to them. They're older now. And they talk with fondness about your show. Did you see that then, that you were healing?
I said a guy can do it using charm and truth, which was my big weapon, was truth.
Truth.
I said to the girls, I am not taking you to a real penthouse with Stuart Mott up on the 52nd floor. I'm taking you to a sleazy basement with no money. And by the way, we're going back on the subway to my place. My limo is off today and my driver is out. So they knew right away there was no big bucks involved. As I like to say, look at my diamond rings, okay? So they said it's kind of a goof, and the guy, I guess he's sort of charming. There's no real big bucks involved, but they kind of liked it.
They wanted a human experience.
Yeah, and a truthful experience, okay? I was Honest Abe, I was Honest Ugly, okay? I told them we're going back to a cheap penthouse. I don't have any money, but you're going to get famous. And they did.
Well, you didn't promise them that.
Oh, yes, because I had 600,000 viewers, and they would get famous. However, there's one thing that Josh knows about, and it's called Jewish guilt, okay? And what would often happen is they would say, oh, my God, I'm famous. My rabbi saw me on the Ugly George show last night. I can't do this anymore. How was he watching? There were only 72 channels, and he caught me on that one channel, right?
Well, I don't know, Josh. I'm impressed with this story that way because I think a human contact is so important. Even a rich guy will never know, is the woman with him because of his money? Or is she with him because of, like, a woman was with George?
I wish both of you could have joined me at Bernard's. Bernard's was a bar and grill on 49th Street, a few blocks from here, which catered mainly to sex workers, strippers, call girls, pornographers, producers. I met Chuck Vincent there. I met Fred Lincoln.
What did Chuck Vincent die of?
AIDS.
Right.
Yeah, but I met all these people there, and once they trusted me, they really spoke to me.
Right.
So they told me what it was all about. And what was it all about? It was all kinds of people. Most of the people who featured in those films were from broken homes. So when you think of broken homes, you think of parents who don't live with you. But many people live with parents in what is essentially a broken home.
Did those men
tell you? Oh, I see what you mean. You mean dishonest. You mean there's iciness between the parents.
Isolated.
Okay.
Yeah.
Josh, did those men tell you how much they were lusting after Robin?
Yeah.
Did they tell you how much they wanted to get Robin into bed because of her luscious bod? Did they tell you that?
Yes.
I'm glad. They leveled with him. All right?
But also
Absolutely.
There was one stud that told me, he was
Ladies
so
and gentlemen,
angry.
we have a beautiful woman behind the camera, and that's where
angry.
Ugly George's eyes are
we
going.
have a beautiful woman.
Okay.
Cindy Applegate, who committed suicide in Los Angeles. This guy was in reform school girls with her, and the man who was supposed to meet her in the men's room couldn't get it up. So he
You
was
mean
a fill-in.
Shauna?
He came in. He.
You mean Shauna?
Well, yeah, Shauna Grant.
We're getting good shop talk here.
He had a complete. He had a complete scene with her, and he said, "You know what I'm so angry about?" He said, "I was just a extra, and I got paid. That film went all over the world, and I only got paid $20 for that film."
Oh my gosh! So, I guess they thought he was being paid in other ways.
He was really mad. So when I met him, he had a broken leg, and he was saying, I'm gonna drop out of the porno industry," and he did. I don't know, but
why did they give him only $20? Because they figured that he was getting great sex or something?
They figured that he was being fulfilled and empowered. That's why. They
said,
you don't really need the money. You're being fulfilled, okay?
Well, then that shows you that there's clever people taking advantage of these
And it also
energies.
shows you about sexism. Do you know the women in pornography are paid 100 times more than the men?
Right.
What a filthy, sexist thing. I think our lesbian feminists should jump up and complain about that. How come women are the stars of porn?
That's men's fault. They just throw it away,
well,
right? They just spill their seed.
Women, from Tracy Lords on down, women have been paid 100 times more than men. And very often men are told, you want to make it with this chick? Never mind the payment, right? They don't get paid at all.
They'll do it for nothing.
The women get paid. Oh my God, why isn't there a worldwide protest about this?
Why do you think that is?
Okay.
George, why are the women paid so much and the men not?
Because the women are the stars. The women are what attract men into the audience of the Pussycat, who was my sponsor. Okay? It isn't the men. The men are props.
Right.
Okay,
you know
as
something?
Josh would be the first to admit, the men are being used for their organs and nothing else.
That's right.
Okay? Josh would be the first to admit that.
When you say the women are the stars, are they being loved for their organs or nothing else?
They're being loved for their bodies, and in the case of certain ones, for their acting ability.
You know what I really believe about both you and Josh? You really love women. You really love women.
We love Nina Hartley from the back, okay? Yeah. Nina was better known from the back than from the front. Did you know that?
Well, she was quite honest.
You're not getting into your feelings, George. Listen, Josh.
All right.
Listen, you really love women.
I do.
And because I see it. I see it here on the set. I
love people and I love women.
And I love that about men. Men who love women, it makes me more relaxed.
Men who love sexy women.
It's not just sexy. No, it's not just sexy, because a man who's in tune with what he likes, he's balanced everywhere.
Okay.
And so,
but I'm trying to make a point to you. You're still not picking up on it. Men packing up and leaving their sexless women, driving hundreds of miles or taking a plane to a porn convention, paying an enormous amount of money to get into a porn convention, paying extra money to do something with the girl because she wants to get paid. Just because they have a ticket to the convention doesn't mean the girl will do anything. So just to take a picture with her, a Polaroid, to put their arm around her, maybe to get a little kiss, maybe to get a little something in the back room afterwards, right? They're paying a lot of money for this.
No, but I'm going to do another roll-in of Sandy Kane because it's related to that. You can't find it now. I'll do it in post-production, Alan.
And Sandy's
what are you looking for?
Oh, I'll do it later with Sandy Kane. She talks about the wife in the house dress and how these guys have this thing to have an orgasm. It's a very funny part.
I'll look for that.
But Dan, I'm supposed to interview Dan Coughlin now. That's why I'm kind of worried.
Why don't you wrap up the show then with everyone?
Yeah, let me wrap it up and I'll do it.
Can I say one thing very quickly? Another thing that humanity is not considering is that different people have different levels of sex drive. So I don't know if you remember when the New Yorker discussed Ed Crotch and said he is among the people on the planet Earth who are asexual. He has absolutely no drive. He's not gay. He's not heterosexual. He's in between. He's asexual.
Asexual.
So we have different levels of sex drive. So somebody who's always in somebody else's pants may I mean, it should be compared to a game of tennis, believe me, especially if they're married or have a girlfriend.
You know what Josh didn't want to point out, but you and I can point out?
What?
His incredible resemblance to Ed Koch. Did you know that Josh is the illegitimate son of Ed Koch? Did you know that? All right, you see the resemblance right here, students, the same bald
I
head?
saw a picture of Josh's parents, and they were beautiful-looking people, and I'm sure...
His alleged parents.
Yeah.
His alleged parents.
That's
no.
right.
When I had my hair, I was a handsome guy.
No, we're going to do another show, Josh, you and me, talking about your mother and what... Well, tell just as we end, what did your mom give you as advice about women?
Well, my mother was prudish. She had a lot... She was prudish in many ways.
Was she prudish or Jewish?
But she also did something terrible to me. She made me a little husband. I didn't pick that up until I was seeing a first-rate therapist. And that's one of the worst things that a mother can really do to a son, even though she did so many wonderful things
But she wanted you to be with other women, right?
Yeah.
She wanted you.
Yes.
What did she tell you?
Oh, yes, she wanted it very much. But once you make your son a little husband, in other words, she went into a lot of things which really shouldn't have been discussed with me. And it wasn't really sex. It was really her denigration of other women who were
Oh, I see what you mean.
seeking sex.
In other words, she kind of discouraged you from seeing women that you wanted to see.
These women should be ashamed of themselves.
And meanwhile, you were loving those women that should have
Yes.
been ashamed of themselves.
Yes.
Okay.
You know, Josh's therapist called me, and I went over there, and the first thing he said to me was, "Can you get me a date with Necky Becky?" That's the girl with the big boobs on my show, okay? So Josh's therapist was telling him one thing, but meanwhile, he wanted those big girls, all right?
Okay, so there we go.
Maybe that's one of the reasons I used to go into Bernard's. Bernard's, everyone was welcome. A lot of tourists came in, and they were very impressed by the professional call girls who spoke their languages like a native, who could discuss football, basketball, cars, world travel. I mean, some of these women were amazing, and after they would finish discussing politics or football or baseball or automobiles and how to repair them, they would say, "Now, are you ready for your BJ?"
What about the couches in the back room, Josh? All right?
Anyway, I think we're going to wrap up now.
Okay.
And it's really been nice to be with both of you men and to see, you know, what brings you happiness and joy. And then also, I'd like to think that by coming on my show, you're concerned with making the society have more of this happiness and joy and working on ways to balance out what gets kind of twisted up.
Students, can you believe on the same show with two beautiful blondes, Paula and Robin, on the same show? Boy, are we lucky, Josh, or what?
We're very lucky.
Okay, unbelievable.
Thank you so much. It's always nice to be appreciated. So my name is Paula Gloria, and this has been a very enjoyable excursion farther down the rabbit hole, and I hope to have both of you back again. Thank you.
I don't think they're applauding.